Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio. Ours is a place where dreams take flight, voices are heard, and stories are shared. This is where cultures meet, connections are formed, and ideas are transformed into action. This is your destination for authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations. We're where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover our world of education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our USA Global TV channel and download our USA Global TV app. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. With heartfelt thanks to our executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, music scored by Yifei Tang from Cloud Road Music, creative direction by Paul Garcia, and I'm Al Cini, and I'm very proud to be part of the USA Global TV and Radio family. So join us here at USA Global TV and Radio. Make us your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication, or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited. Thank you for being a part of our global community. Let's inspire together.
Hello and welcome to the Persistence Payoff Show. I'm your host, Kimberly Schaefer. We're here on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. I'm on my own lifelong journey with persistence through my own previous career and my personal life. And now in my next chapter, I am a first-time inventor and entrepreneur. I'm the inventor of the ring thing, which is a waterproof patented ring holder. It's different than anything else I've ever done, and I'm learning about persistence every single day. One of the things that I've learned through my own talking with people and also through this show is persistence can take a whole bunch of different forms. And so we can focus on our own persistence and the pursuit of our own goals. We can also help foster that in other people and help them to be persistent in achieving their dreams. And I think our guest today has experience with both of those. And I'm so excited to talk with her. Suzy Vadori is a best-selling book author, an editor, and a book coach. She had a 20-year career as a business executive, and then she transitioned into being an author, and she's written a best-selling book series. She also has a very successful business coaching other writers to achieve their dreams, and she's an editor. And I think that her experience with her own persistence and also that of her clients is going to be really fascinating to talk about. So please welcome Suzy Vadori.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here today. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Oh gosh, thank you so much for being here. I'm thrilled to have you. So I'm really curious to go back and just learn a little bit about your own personal journey with persistence. And so I'm really interested to know how you made that transition from being a business executive into being a best-selling author. And can you share with us just what that journey was and what was the impetus for it?
Absolutely. And to be honest, it wasn't deliberate. And sometimes the best things are not, right? The best transitions that you make, you have to be open as you go along your journey to what doors are opening for you. So in terms of my own journey with writing, I always knew that I would be a writer one day. I always knew that I would write a book. It was like not something I just wanted to do or bucket list or something like that. It was just like, well, yeah, of course I'll write a book. It was something I loved to do when I was younger, writing, but nobody ever told me that writing could be a job, right? They said, that's nice hobby. You're good at math, you're good at science, go do something else, right? So I actually was, as you mentioned, I was a business executive for about 20 years. I got a business degree. I ended up working on Wall Street. Later on, managing factories in China, doing all kinds of things. And so I'm super interested in your entrepreneurial journey because I've helped like many entrepreneurs, worked with lots of startups later in my career because I got kind of bored of the corporate part and worked with lots of entrepreneurs as a chief operating officer. So sort of that right hand to the person, to the inventor, to the person with those big ideas. And I never thought that I would one day be the CEO because I thought, well, I'm the person who advises you not to jump off a cliff. I'm the one who's like, I've seen it before. I know how this ends. And the CEO is the one saying like, well, I know, I hear you, Suzy. You might be right, but I just got a good feeling I'm going to do it anyway. And then they jump off the cliff, and it was my job to like build the plane for them as they fell and make sure that they didn't fall too hard, right? And come back up again. And so, yeah, it was always sort of that behind the scenes, and writing was one of those things. But in the back of my mind was like, I will write a book one day. I'm going to do this. And as I looked at that, and I had a lot of conversations with my husband about what I wanted to be when I grew up, in my late 30s and into my 40s, what do I want to do when I'm growing up? Because you kind of get to the top of your career, and by the third or fourth company that I'd done this for, building those planes, it gets to be redundant. And so I'm like, well, when am I going to, really spread my own wings, and where do I fit? And so writing a book, I actually wrote my first novel on maternity leave with my third child. I didn't know what kind of book I was going to write originally. And I kept looking, I was like, well, I want to write something that could reach a lot of people, but I also had this executive image to sort of balance. And so I didn't want to write something racy, and I didn't want to write something too out there, and all the things, all these pressures and choices. And young adult, it's a young adult fantasy. It's got romance in it. But young adult was one of those things that I felt like I could still be me and use my own name and my own persona and my own community, and still be really, really proud of these books and let my kids read the books eventually. And so I wrote the first draft of that on maternity leave with my third child, because as many people who are persistent in life, I live in Canada, so we get a year, which is amazing, for maternity leave. I didn't actually take the full year for my first two kids because I was an executive, and it just didn't really work to take that long off. And plus I knew I wanted 3 kids. And so I had to kind of time that. But when my third came along, I actually took the full 2 years. My husband was running a brewery at that time as the CEO of that brewery. And so he was like working really long hours. And so it was great for me to be home with all 3 kids for that time. But it wasn't enough for me. And so I sat down and I wrote a novel. And it wasn't ready in the beginning. It wasn't ready. I didn't know what I was doing, and I had to learn a lot. But my operations brain, as I was learning, I had a lot of opportunities. I went to a lot of conferences. I had the opportunity to work with some really amazing editors, some of the best editors in the world, that I workshopped with this novel, and eventually figured it out and got that book ready. That became the best-selling The Fountain series. But it was that sort of, I can do this, and that attitude that I've always had, that's like, okay, I love something new. And how did I did go back to work after that maternity leave. I did go back to work as an executive for many years. And eventually I was being asked, once the second book in the series came out and it was selling really well, I was being asked to speak and teach and come on shows like this and do all of these things and tour in schools and do all of these things related to authordom. And there was a time, that was the time when I was managing factories in China. I was traveling once a quarter. And so we had to really manage, my husband and I, our travel schedules with 3 small kids at home. And we do have lots of support as well. We're very fortunate. We had family around, but we had to kind of manage a little bit. And so there was April 2018 when I came to him and I was like, all right, we're doing this schedule thing for the spring. Here's the thing. I have been asked to do all of these things. I'm like, I'm taking 7 vacation days off my job as a vice president at this company. I need to go and do author stuff for those days, right? And he was like, honey, you can't take our family vacation days and go and work a second job. Like, what is happening here? This is not sustainable. You're tired, all these things. Like, what? Something's got to give. And I'm like, day job's got to give. And he's like, not day job. But eventually, we had this kind of moment where we had a conversation. I have the most amazing husband in the world, by the way. And I'm not saying that because he's here. He's actually in Minneapolis this week, but he's really supportive and has always known that I just go for whatever. And he's never stood in my way. And so, eventually he kind of came around and he came to me and he had this whole plan. And he was like, all right, so if you want to be a starving artist, that's cool. We can do this. We're going to downsize. We're going to, he's like planning this whole thing out. And I was like, whoa. I have no intention of being a starving artist. I have a lot of business skills to translate into this industry. I have so much to bring to this industry. I'm going to make this work. I'm going to make a living as a writer, as a teacher, as a coach, as all of the things that I'm doing now. I can do this. I can see it. I can do this. I can do this. And then I did.
Wow. That is very inspiring because one of the things I love about what you said is like it was always in your head, like, of course I'm going to be a writer, and as I've been learning about manifestation and sort of making dreams come true, like that's an important component is like to see it and believe it that it's already happened, and so even though it hadn't happened yet in the early days, it was always in your mind, like, of course, this is a given. And
Yeah, it was a given. I didn't understand how much it was going to change me, and change my expectations of the world. And I say this to writers all the time. Writing a book is a whole thing, and it's going to open doors that you have no idea about. And it certainly did for me. I thought that I could write books and also keep my day job and then just kind of do that on the side and be like free money. And then I'd show up for appearances or whatever. I didn't realize how much I would love being in that environment and how much it was going to suck me in and how much then I'd be like, whoo, I'm at my day job and going like, I'm making widgets, right? Like I'm making widgets and going like, but I could be helping people, or I could be, having these deep conversations with my people in the universe. And I was like, it was just like night and day for me. This light went off and it kind of sucked me into where I maybe should have been all along. I don't know. But at the end of the day, all those experiences led me to being able to create an actual business in this non-business industry. And I know that if I didn't have that 20 years behind me, number one, I wouldn't appreciate it. Two, I would have had no idea what I was doing or how to do this, because nobody's sort of trailblazing that in the industry. And so there's not a lot of models out there about how you can be entrepreneurial and still be in the arts. It's uncommon.
Yes, that is fascinating. Well, and of course, I would love to have a conversation with you offline about widgets because I can always use help with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool.
But,
and there's lots of things to find out. I mean, I say widgets. Yeah. My last role at the company I was making, we were manufacturing like home decor items, but also like nails and screws to hang home decor items. And so, they were really intricate and really cool at the time. But now I'm like, okay, but I'm doing something very different now. It's like night and day. Yeah.
Yes. And I can also see how, it's so interesting in life how one thing leads to the other. And your background as an operations person and a problem solver, I was really thinking about that when you were talking about that you could visualize how to create more in your writing career and being a book coach and helping other people. And you could see what the possibilities were, and you could see how to make that happen. And so I could imagine that your background in business really influenced that and helped lead to that.
Yeah. And it's really actually influenced my methodology on how I teach writing as well, because I found it very difficult to find. I mean, especially 15 years ago, it was very difficult to find information on how to write a book better. I mean, lots of people will tell you, you got to do this or that, but it's like, but how do I do that? Right. And so I think also my business-minded brain, I think in matrices. And so for me, I would learn something and I'd be like, oh, these 5 people said this, but they're all really meaning this. And then I go back to them and be like, do you mean this? And they're like, well, that's a weird way to think about it. But yeah, absolutely. And so I actually created these little building blocks, which is what I now teach, which is for people coming from outside the industry. How do you understand, without taking an MFA, without spending, 10 years reading the classics and trying to figure out theme and all of the things, what are the things you can do? Like, what is your story about? And how can you physically put it on the page in a way that a reader's going to get, right? So that's been a lot of fun. I'm still working on a lot of it. But to break it down in that way is really different. And I know that that's sort of my unique perspective that's allowed me to figure that piece out. And it really works because writers are like, oh my gosh, I've been trying to figure this out for 10 years and now I finally get it. And then they're getting a very different response when they put their writing in front of readers. So it's been a lot of fun to do that.
Wow, that is fascinating. And do you do most of your teaching, is it online or do you run in-person workshops or a combination of both?
Yeah, a combination of both. I mean, certainly for students, like I still tour in schools periodically and do that sort of thing is all in person. I don't prefer to do that online. A lot of it went online in 2020. And, speaking of persistence, when you're an entrepreneur, you have to just continually pivot. And so I'm always open. So before the pandemic, I was making a full-time living speaking and teaching, mostly in person and doing events. And so at events, I was able to sell my books, and I was able to speak with people, and I was able to get paid to speak, and all of those things. And, in March of 2020, when everything all went down, I was fully booked as a speaker 6 months in advance. And I was like, wow, that was pretty fast, a year and a half in, after pitching events. And now it was kind of like events would come back and be like, come back this year and come back again. You have to get in the first time, figure out where do I want to be. So that was really awesome. And then all of a sudden it all disappeared. Right. And it all disappeared overnight, like all of these in-person gigs. And some of it went online. Although, if I could make, let's say, $1,000 to be there in person selling books and getting paid to speak, then they would have a 1-hour thing online. You'd get paid $100 to do the same thing. And it wasn't as fun. Right. And so there was all these things happening where these events were kind of popping back up, but they weren't really what I wanted to do. I wasn't getting that same level of energy. My superpower as a writer is very unusual to be so extroverted. And so when other people are getting their batteries drained when they're doing this stuff, I'm like ramping up when I'm with other people. And so, so that was really hard. But I had this other little corner of things that was growing, which was this editing and book coaching piece, which people were just asking me to do, and I was not pursuing. If you'd asked me, if my books would have taken over my career, I would have said absolutely not. If you'd asked me before the pandemic, would I become an editor full-time or book coach? Absolutely not, right? But this is how life works, is people had been asking me to do that. And so I was doing it for people that I met that didn't have an alternative. They're like, your advice has been so helpful. Would you please? I didn't even know what book coaching was called. I didn't have a name for it. It was like, I would offer some advice and they'd be like, can I meet with you on a regular basis? This is really helpful. Right. And I would be like, sure, I guess so. Right. So I had this little one line on the bottom of my website that said, I also do writing coaching. Contact me if you're interested. Like, that was it. And people would do it, but not very many people. And then that's when I started thinking, well, how can I help? Like, I know that I have this skill set and people are asking me to do it. I can no longer do these events. And so I went that year in 2020 and I pursued, which I was aware of, but I didn't think I needed or wanted. I pursued my book coaching certification with Author Accelerator out of the States. And that's where it all kind of came clear to me. I already knew what I was teaching, right? And then picked up some other methodology and confirmed that what I was teaching was indeed, bleeding edge stuff, right? The right things, and put it in different contexts. But also, it's where, when I met my mentor, Jenny Nash, who is the CEO of Author Accelerator, where I started to think about what you were saying earlier, which is all of these business skills actually do translate really well. And because she's a really, really smart business lady, and they really translate well. And so this book coaching thing that I was kind of doing as a one-off, how could I scale it? And what did that look like? Right. And so in August of 2020, I had finished my certification. I think I finally got certified a couple months later, but I was pretty far into the program. I developed these packages. I put them on my website, and people always say, you can't just put up a website and people won't just come. But guess what? Because I built this community, I'd been speaking at conferences and they were now online. I spoke at a conference in August of 2020. I told people that I did this, and the next day I had 9 clients. Right. Wow. And I was like, okay, my book coaching practice is full. And now what? Right. Like, it was just like this thing, but the persistence piece of it didn't happen overnight. I'd been in this community for 10 years. I just didn't know that I wasn't offering them something to buy. I wasn't offering them a way to work with me other than, you figure it out and contact me. Right. Ask, and maybe I will, maybe I won't. Right. And then I was like, hey, I give this service. And people were like, yes, I want that service. And then I was like, all right, now we got a job again. Now we don't have to go get a job. We can keep doing this thing.
That is fascinating. It's really neat to hear how that developed and how you listened to yourself along the way, and one thing led to the other. And at this time, are you still writing? Do you still have books that you are working on? Are you more focused on the book coaching?
I mean, I do both, definitely. I did have 2 novels that were with my agent in 2020, and neither one of those sold, which is fine. I mean, I got to revise and resubmit for one of them, and which I will do eventually. Like I know what I need to do with them, and I am writing a nonfiction book on writing, kind of meta, but on show don't tell writing. And so I'm working on that right now. But I work on about 100 books a year, so it's not small. And so I find that a lot of my creative energy goes into that. And I have a weekly newsletter that I produce. I also have a weekly podcast that I produce. So I'm continually creating and spitting out that creativity. I want to get the nonfiction book out of the way, and then I'm going to go back to those fiction books and see. But yeah, I find it's amazing because especially when I see writers that have known for a long time, they first say, wow, I can't believe like all the things that you're doing. That's crazy. And then they say that same question, like, but are you writing? And they say it with this concerned look on their face. I'm okay. I'm okay. I absolutely am so proud of the writers that get their books out there. And I feel like a little piece of me is in each one of those. So I feel so fulfilled in helping them. But yes, I always write. And hopefully one day soon I'll carve out that time.
Yeah. Well, I think it's incredible that you started out with a best-selling series. I mean, that's an amazing achievement. And I'm curious to know, as you've worked with your clients, have you noticed a few key factors that I don't know if I would say predict, but that contribute to whether or not they finish their book and whether or not the book is successful?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say the same thing is true for myself. Oftentimes people come to me and they want marketing advice. So I mean, I was a marketer. I have a business degree in marketing. And there's so many ways to answer that question. There's no cookie cutter way. But in terms of what drew me to come on this show and why I love your show is the persistence factor, right? It's pick one thing, do it well, learn it well, keep showing up. Just keep showing up. Just keep showing up and keep iterating, keep iterating, keep iterating. That is the one thing. And people will say to me, and I have actually colleagues that will say, but okay, so I know that you've done a weekly newsletter for 5 years, but other than that, what has contributed to your growth of your business? I said, no, that's it. I keep showing up. That's how you build trust. That's how people know that you're going to be there for them. It's how they know what you're about. And when they're ready, it's always amazing to me. I have clients come back years later after they've been following me for years when they're finally ready, and then they're ready to come and work with me, right? And I didn't even know that they were on my email list. I had no idea. And then they come back and they're just ready because you've been talking with them every single week for 5 years or for 3 years or for 2 years. So that persistence factor for sure. And I'm not just saying that because I'm on the show. I'm on the show because I believe it. But also it translates really early on to how I know whether or not a writer will finish their book and whether or not they will be successful. Because I mean, there's a lot of people in the industry that will look at writing and say whether or not you have talent, right? Oh, and lots of people won't work with new writers. I love working with beginning writers. It means I get a lot of referrals from other coaches who are it's not their favorite thing to teach somebody from the ground up. But I think it's amazing. And if I meet with a writer who's really gung-ho and has like a really clear vision for what they want, and they're really passionate about it, and they are willing to put in the work, they're willing to invest their time, their money, their energy, all of those things, they're going to be successful. I already manifest it for them. I believe it, right? Like I know that it's going to happen. And then it does. But they have to be willing and open. If somebody comes to me with their manuscripts or their sample pages and I give them feedback and they say, well, I'm already doing that. Or like, but what else? Or I'm not changing that, but can you help me anyway? Like I'm going to say, I can tell already it's not going to be a good fit because they're not willing to learn or to listen. Writing is twofold. It's what you want to say, but it's also how the reader receives it. And there's like this sort of black box in between where you think what that beautiful message is in your mind, or that world or that magic or whatever you're writing about, that it's so alive in your own mind. And then it's like the game of telephone that you played as kids, where there's a line of people and you whisper, you whisper, you whisper. And at the end of the line, somebody's got a totally different idea of what your idea originally was, right? Because you haven't taken the time to figure out how that's going to work in their brain, right? So there's actual skills that you can learn to get that image and make sure it makes it all the way to the end of the telephone line the same. And then you have a conversation with your reader, because they actually saw what you meant to put there. And so then if they have a comment on it, it makes sense. If you think you're writing one thing and it gets to the end of the telephone line and they give you a 1-star review because they interpreted something completely different, that's on you, right? That's not because they didn't like your idea. They didn't even get it. So it's like that piece that you have to learn. There are real skills. It's not like, it's like this myth out there that you can, and Hollywood perpetuates it. You can just go out and rent a cabin. You have this idea and sit down and write a bestseller. And then the next scene, you're, sipping tea on your yacht because you made so much money with your book. That is not real. It takes a long time to figure out those skills. Your second book will be faster. And even if you know spelling and grammar and you have business writing, I mean, those are all great. They're helpful. But it doesn't mean that you can put your ideas into a book in a way that readers are going to get.
Yeah, that makes
such
good sense. Yes, totally. Yeah. And,
Right.
I was reflecting when you were talking about the, the telephone game. I have been lately listening to more audiobooks, which I never wanted to do. I really like holding a book and turning the page, but just because I'm doing things and packing orders, I listen to books. And one thing I've come to really appreciate is that when the author is reading the book, they're emphasizing the words the way that they meant them. And so I feel like I'm getting a little bit more of a direct line to what they intended when they wrote the book. And I was thinking about that with the telephone, because if I'm just reading it off the page, it's going through that telephone line of my filter, of what I would emphasize. And so it's a very interesting process.
Yeah, I actually love audiobooks now. And the main reason I do audiobooks is because as an editor, I read books all day long. And so the last thing I want to do when my husband, takes out his thriller that he's going to read and he curls up in bed reading it and he's like, we should read. And I'm like, I don't want to read. That's what I did all day. But I still want to consume story. And so I find, because my eyes get tired, I'm getting up there in age and my eyes get tired when I'm reading on screens all day. And so, yeah, I do audiobooks for that reason. But there's a lot of research now that says that the actual synopsis, like everything that's happening in your brain, is identical if you are reading an audiobook or if you're reading an actual book. Don't apologize for reading audiobooks. You're still reading and you're still consuming that. And especially nonfiction books, if they're read in the author's voice, I feel like I've just been in a masterclass and taught by them myself. Like, I just think it's so inspiring. I love it.
Yes, I agree. So the nonfiction book that you're writing right now, will you do an audio version of that yourself?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I have to find a publisher first, but yeah, absolutely. That's the plan.
Oh my gosh. I'm curious to know, how do you balance your workload with book coaching? Do you have a set number? Like, I'm making it up, I'll only take 50 clients. And that's my max, or is it more a mix of who you have and where you feel like they are in the process? Like, how do you decide that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm an operations person. We have a spreadsheet and we have predictions and things. And it's the subject of 2 calls a week with my team, because we have to make sure that I don't get overloaded and that I can spread things out and that I can manage clients' expectations appropriately. Book coaching clients, I mean, I usually have about 10 to 12 active clients at any given time. Some are meeting every week, some are meeting every 3rd week. So we have to kind of figure out that timing. I know how long I have to prep. I usually prep 2 hours for a 1-hour call because I'm reviewing what they've done before. I'm giving feedback. So there's there's a lot of math involved actually. And that's the scalability piece of it. So I make sure that I don't get overwhelmed. And then I also do developmental editing of full manuscripts. And I know exactly how long it's going to take me to do those as well. And so we kind of have a spreadsheet, and then I actually group things for managing my own workload and my own creativity. I group things so that I'm meeting with clients mainly on 2 days a week. And then those other days I can do shows and I can do my own things and I can, write my newsletter. And I just tend to kind of group those things because it does take a lot of my focus to give to my clients and to give to their pieces. And in terms of developmental editing, I take one at a time and I finish it. Sometimes I'll do it depending on what else is going on or what conferences I'm speaking at, or if I'm traveling for work or if I'm on vacation or who knows, it's all factored in. But sometimes I'll take 2 weeks to do that. Sometimes I'll take a month. Sometimes I'll take 6 weeks because I know that I'll be able to fit it in. It's reading. It's amazing, right? And I can do it on a plane and I can do it at my cottage and I can do it, but I just have to do it. And so I fit those timeframes in. Yeah. So I'm a bit anal in terms of scheduling because I want to make sure, it's also in this industry, another thing, bringing that business mindset to the industry. My clients really appreciate when I say, like, I'm giving you the feedback on the 31st, you're getting it on the 31st. So you're not constantly refreshing your inbox, waiting for Suzy's feedback on your novel and wondering what's taking me so long. Well, that's not true. In 6 years, I think I've missed 2 deadlines and they were both for deaths in the family. And I just said, hey, I'm not going to make this one. I'm going to be 3 days late. Like, it's not like, 3 months go by. But oftentimes in this industry, and I've experienced it myself with editors, you throw it over the wall and then it's whenever they can get it done. And it could be a long time, like 6 months wouldn't be weird. In this industry. So to be able to say, hey, you're going to get this back in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, people are like, thank you. Like, that is a totally different value proposition for people, as it's much less anxiety inducing than wondering, okay, she's not getting back. Does that mean she doesn't like it? All the mean things that we tell ourselves, which isn't true. Usually it just has to do with our own schedules. So.
Yeah. Well, that's, I totally agree with you. I feel like it is a kind thing to tell people, here's what to expect, and then to stick with that unless something happens. Like you said, a family death.
And I mean, people are obviously really kind when there's a real emergency, but I'm always like, I hate missing a deadline.
Yes. Oh, I can imagine. I'm curious to know through this process. So you've had the quality of persistence for a long time, through your business career, and as you transition into this, as you've learned more about yourself and what you've learned through your clients, do you feel like that quality within you has changed at all, or is it the same? Is there?
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, no, go ahead. No, I was just wondering if you feel like it's the same or if something has changed over time.
I mean, it's definitely contributed to my success. I know at some level I can be really intense, and maybe that's not, great for your own quality of life. So I think at this stage in my life, I'm actually trying to temper that continuously. And part of a business mastermind of international women who are working, like, who have online businesses, which is a really cool space. And one of the things that they find, that they're always on me about is that persistence, because I celebrate it and it's great, but at the same time it's also a detriment because you're always choosing that over something else and you're always on to the next. And so at this point in my life, I turned 50 this year. There needs to be space for other things as well, and especially when you're in a creative space. And I think getting to work on your business and sort of pulling away from it a little bit, and that not feeling like you have to continuously be busy or continuously be doing that low level work or that very detailed work to feel your own worth. That's something I'm working on. I'll share that.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine that's probably a lifelong journey, because things, and I'm, first of all, congratulations on turning 50. That's wonderful. So
I try to embrace it. My grandmother turned 100 the same month. So I try to look at it like I'm always I'm not even a glass half full person. I'm a glasses full person. Like, it's just how I view the world. The world is your oyster. Go out and get it. Right. But so I'm like, I got 50 more years. Now, what am I going to do? Right. Like, I just view it as a blank slate. So.
It's wonderful. Yes. It's just looking at it as a whole new, you still have a long run in front of you, which is great. I'm 65. And so I think of the same thing about myself. It's like, okay, I still have time, can still do some things. And so I
never would have guessed that. I never would have guessed that.
Thank you. I appreciate
fantastic at any age.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it, but it's exciting. It's like life is never dull, that's for sure. And,
Yeah,
um,
see, and starting a show and all the things that you're doing. It's amazing.
yeah, I just, and that's, I think, one of the things about my own persistence that I've learned is just like keep going, don't give up. And I think as women, we don't have to say I'm of this age, and so it's time to stop. We can always keep developing ourselves. And
Absolutely.
uh, I'm curious, with the nonfiction book that you're writing, is
Yeah.
that something that embodies your book coaching philosophy, or can you tell us a little bit about the content of that?
Absolutely. So I mean, the working title is Show Don't Tell Writing. So it'll be about a specific technique, but I teach it in a very different way. So yes, it embodies a lot of the lessons that I've developed over the years through book coaching. I also have online courses. And so I just find that when I talk to people, and it's like those aha moments. So I'm sharing some of those building blocks of writing on a very specific topic, but in a really different way. So I'm really excited about that.
Yes. Oh, I'm excited to read it. I'm going to read that. So, as
Absolutely.
yeah, thank you. We're almost at the end of our time, and this has flown by. I'm so enjoying talking with you. And I'd like to ask you if you can let our audience know how they can connect with you. How can people find you? How can they find find your books?
Absolutely. The best place is just on my website, suzyvadori.com, which is SUZYVADORI. I spell it because it's a hard name to remember how to spell. .com. And on my website, there's links to how you can work with me. Again, everything is totally upfront. All of my packages are there, all of my pricing, and also all of the courses, my books, everything about me is there. You can also find my podcast. So,
All right, super. All right, gosh, thank you. Well, thank you, Suzy. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm so inspired by talking with you and hearing about what you're doing. And I look forward to seeing what comes next.
thank you so much for having me on the show. It's amazing to reflect on persistence. It's just such a topic that I'm actually really passionate about. So thank you for the opportunity to ramble on about how it's affected me.
Oh gosh, you've inspired me. So I don't think it's rambling at all. It was very, very inspirational. So thank you. I appreciate it. Um, so I wrap up every show with a quote about persistence, and I select the quote before the show, and I never know exactly how the conversation is going to go, but so often the quote seems to fit with what our conversation was. And so today's quote is from Robin Sharma, who said, "Persistence is the mother of personal change." And I think that fits so well with Suzy's journey and what she shared with us and what she's helping other people see through her book coaching. So thank you so much. We are here with the Persistence Payoff Show every other Tuesday at 12 p.m. Pacific time. You can watch us live, or you can see us anytime on YouTube after that. The shows are always available. And if you'd like to contact me, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can contact me through my website, which is ringthing.com. My email is kimberly@ringthing.com. And I would love to hear from you about any ideas about guests, any feedback, any questions or comments, or anything you'd like to share. Please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA Global TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dyes. produced by executive producer and director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.